Dodgers are the big winners in the Major League Baseball season. Tatis has already won the big contract, and Pujols getting at the end, the last year of his. Hello and welcome to AAi, the podcast on analytics and sports. I'm Phil in Los Angeles. Say hello to the AAi's. Andrew is down in San Diego, and Ari is in Chicago. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hey, everyone.
Glad to have you join us as spring training rolls into the first weekend of games. Condensed schedule this year, spring training. They always played too many games anyway. But guys, we've heard this from our colleagues around the sport. What an unsettling to some and what a news-making week to others. We're going to start off with BetMGM posting their over-under for the season. Andrew, we all knew who would be at the top of the over-under.
Yeah, it kind of hurts sitting here in San Diego, but not too surprising. Dodgers are projected with an over-under number of 101.5, which is just astonishing. I mean, that would be an incredible year. And then the number 2 team, the New York Yankees, pretty clearly the class of the American League, at least as it looks right now, at 95.5. The NL West, even with the Dodgers being as good as it is, could be close, should be exciting. The second best team in the National League also in the West, the Padres at 94.5, and then followed up by the Braves at 91.5 and the Mets at 90.5, hopefully making for a really exciting NL East race. And then the White Sox at 90.5 wins.
Be interesting to follow that. And BetMGM believes the Pirates will get the number 1 draft pick. That's our way of saying they'll have the lowest win total at 58.5. Sometimes there's money to be made on that end of the spectrum as opposed to going and with all the competition at the top. Now, it's been a couple of days since Fernando Tatis Jr. signed the mega contract, $340 million, 14 years. Ari tweeted out what remains news to me. Ari, explain this. One of your students, and you have the top analytics class in the industry, one of your students did what?
Yeah, Zach McGuire is one of the students at my sports management worldwide, literally predicted the Tatis contract. And mind you, he's a really smart, astute person, and we have final papers for each of the students, and that was his. And this was, quite a while before it, many months before it came to fruition. So, the thought process and the analysis of comparable players and so on was pretty spot on. So, kudos to Zach.
Yeah, you have to tell him that we mentioned him. Text him and tell him we mentioned him on the podcast.
He'll be thrilled. Yeah.
Andrew, because we're into numbers, we love minutia. But even the minutia of Tatis' contract is not minor. It's major. It's big.
It's mind-blowing, I think is the way to put it, right? When you take, it's $340 million, which is an amazing amount of money. But let's try to get smaller numbers, right? Per month, he'll be paid $2 million. That's about $5,000 in at bat, about $16,500 in inning, $2,800 an hour, or $47 a minute. Man, that's a nice payout.
Wow. And there are a couple of other ways to break it down that are equally mind-numbing. Ari, let's talk about a couple of things. Tied for most seasons of 15 home runs and 930 OPS before age 22. He's in select company.
Yeah. Mike Trout, Ted Williams, one of the all-time greats, all of them, and Mel Ott. Those are it. Mike, and Tatis.
And when you break down players, what does OPS mean to you?
Yeah, it used to be batting average was the golden standard, but OPS is kind of the new, like Moneyball. It's better than batting average since a walk counts, a home run counts more than a single, and so on. So it's a better way to measure overall offensive output. Doesn't include stolen bases. That's kind of like a better measurement. So being in that rare company is at this age just shows credible promise as well.
Yeah, not such a big gamble for the Padres. In fact, an aggressive move because we can use OPS again. Tatis Jr., second all-time highest OPS through age 21 for all infielders, 956. Albert Pujols, number 1. Then Tatis, Cody Bellinger, number 3. Eddie Matthews, number 4. A-Rod, number 5. And again, that's select company. All right, Andrew, quick question for you guys. When you're doing predictive stats and looking at other predictive stats like ZiPS, which ones do you look at? Because I'm thinking about BetMGM putting over under at 101.5. My first thought is I want to compare that to a couple of other predictive stats. All right, which one's your go-to?
Sure. Well, there's public available and then ones that I derive myself. Like weighted on-base average for offense seems to be the most predictive from year to year. But if you have access to pitch-by-pitch data, you can look at things like how hard they hit the ball and how often they swing and miss, and kind of do what's expected, were they overvalued or undervalued based on exit velocity, launch angle, strikeout rates, walk rates, things like that.
And Andrew, do you have a favorite go-to?
I think it's very similar to what Ari said. WOBA, of course, to start with. But then as he's talking about with the pitch-by-pitch data, you can begin creating expected values of what I think they should have done in a neutral environment, taking out the vagaries of the ballpark they were playing in, the defense they were facing, to try to give them credit for barreling the ball and so on, that maybe missed on these counting statistics.
Okay. We mentioned Albert Pujols. Let's pick up on that. That really was one of the funniest things of spring training so far. There have been one or two light moments, a couple of very serious ones. We'll get to that in a minute. But Albert says he's undecided now about retiring, and I think this is hilarious. His wife Deidre posted on Instagram, "Today is the first day of the last season of one of the most remarkable careers in sports." She's really right, except for later she posted, "Today is the first day of the last season based on his contract." So for some reason, Albert or his agent said, "No, not so fast. Let's kind of reframe that," even though I suspect she was really telling the truth. And I wish that it would play out that way, because this is one guy who really deserves an honorable go-around in his last season at the big leagues. And it probably ought to be time for an honorable go-around for the machine. I'll go through this. Pujols lists his age at 41. He actually got caught 2 years ago saying he's 2 years older. Are you guys aware? Andrew, did you hear? He was in a conversation. Someone brought up, "Hey, I heard you played Little League with," name the Little League. And the guy's like, "Yeah, we were on the same team, same league." And the guy's 2 years older. So Albert got caught a little bit there. He's entering the final year of that monster $10-year, $240 million. He's supposed to make $30 million this season, but we give him all credit in the world. He ranks 5th all-time in home runs with 662. Still, watching him get around the bases the last couple of years been a little painful, and for Angel fans, perhaps all the more so. Now, that's the good news. I'm going to take that. Some of the news that's not so good. Seattle exec Kevin Mather resigned after inflammatory comments to a Rotary Cub. This is the talk of baseball, really. His admission about service time suppression of the Mariners' top 2 prospects, one hitter, one pitcher, perhaps, or Ari, I don't know, that appears most harmful. Ari, can you explain about outfield prospect Jared Klenick? Very talented. I watched him make his way through the minors, seen him in person. He spoke out today. He was the number 6 pick of the 2018 draft. He probably has something to speak out against. See if you can untangle that for us, Ari.
Sure. So yeah, he was the number 6 pick in the 2018 draft. He's a lefty center fielder, signed with the Mets, now with the Mariners. He, and reminder that last year there was not minor leagues. So he last played around age 19 and doing quite well. Like last year over 3 different levels, he had a 904 OPS, which, is a bit under Tatis, but still, one of the best or better offensive minor leaguers. Peaked at AA so far, but again, very, very young. So a good prospect. And this whole service time suppression, Anthony Rizzo with the Cubs spoke out a little bit about that, since it's not the only case, but it's where teams like intentionally don't call you up, since once you get called up to the majors, your service time clock starts ticking, and basically a way to save time and money for major league teams, but you just do it and say, we didn't think he was ready yet, and nobody could argue with that. But if your president or former president in this case admits it, then it's out there in the public.
It'll be interesting to see what impact that has when it's time to negotiate the collective bargaining agreement after this season is over. All right, go ahead, Andrew.
Before we go on, I would like to propose that team officials stop going to Rotary clubs and giving these speeches. This is not the first time a team official has gotten into a lot of hot water at a Rotary club. I don't know what it is.
And Rotary Club is world headquarters here in Evanston. Right in Chicago. I used to work a block away.
Well, we can see the city of Chicago over your shoulder. By the way, that's the live AAi Podcast camera over showing us downtown Chicago. No snow, all good. And then we see, of course, Andrew, the sun setting over his shoulder on one of the piers along the Pacific coast, all at the same time.
We should give it credit. It is the world famous Scripps Institute of Oceanography.
Ooh.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, and we talk about San Diego. Andrew is our San Diego correspondent. Chris Paddock said something. Guys, I think the three of us, we work in the analytics business. We understand the mix of wisdom of what we'll call traditional knowledge or old school, new school, and the healthy respect for all forms of wisdom. Here's an example, Andrew, with Chris Paddock of the Padres, of how a player is adapting. Share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris Paddock, I think by his own admission, was somewhat of a doubter of some of the modern analytics. But he mentioned that a Padres staffer showed him the difference simply in his spin numbers, something we've been talking a lot about over the last year in baseball, between 2019 and 2020, and he'd seen the change in his performance based on those spin numbers. And he now claims to be a believer, claims is probably unfair. He is a believer in analytics at this point after having seen this. He claims it blew his mind. And in fact, he then took this offseason to spend time working on those sorts of activities to improve his performance.
We got to give him credit for understanding and seeing the benefit of it. All right, college baseball, D1 baseball underway. And Ari, can you believe this? It's good to be freshman Caleb Pendleton of Florida Atlantic.
Yeah, the best offensive thing you can do in baseball is hit a grand slam. And his first at-bat, grand slam, and you can guess second at-bat, grand slam. Also remarkable, both in the same inning.
No one will ever forget that. How could you possibly ever forget that? That's wonderful. All right. European soccer often leads the way on trends on and off the field, and Andrew's helped coach us on that. Andrew, this one is a cautionary trend.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the Pete Rose story. If you want to go back to that, we've talked about Pete Rose and some of his gambling issues. We know there's some gambling problems in sports around the world. This is a different twist on this, not one I was expecting. But Aston Villa has now banned their squad from playing Fantasy Premier League because information about their captain's injury leaked out before the match. So there were rumors about his fitness going into the match against Leicester on Friday night. And then a Twitter account reported that multiple VIA players had removed him from their game day squad on fantasy sports. And this is because you have to do this 90 minutes before the start of any match. So inadvertently, the team had given away information about who was going to be starting and playing during that match. It's wild, although I have to ask the question, how do you feel as a VIA player when you found out that he was on their fantasy squad, but you weren't?
It leads down a trail of, oh my goodness.
Yes, absolutely.
And that can be really serious quickly. Great story. Ari, update on Tokyo Olympics and how they're facing COVID.
Yeah, and I was thinking of having my background Tokyo as well. It's a big, multi-billion-dollar decision. But yeah, they released their rules for fans and spectators. So for athletes, no hugs, no high fives, no handshakes. And also you're not allowed to watch or cheer on your teammates inside the venues. And the interesting thing is fans are not allowed to cheer. They could only applaud by clapping. And I thought I heard a Japanese amusement park where they have roller coasters where they weren't allowed to scream on it, since that's a way to get the spread out there. But that's where they are now for the rules.
Wow. Well, and we're just about done. We'll wrap it up with Pitbull about to make pit stops. That's what they should name the NASCAR team. Entertainer Pitbull, singer, rapper, hip hop artist, says he's going to buy a NASCAR team, following the lead of Michael Jordan, who has one as well. And we give him credit. NASCAR has promoted about a half dozen drivers through the racing minor leagues who have Latin heritage. And it looks like Pitbull is going to jump in there and own a team. Good development for the sport. Well, that will just about be it for us. We've enjoyed hanging out with you this week. Baseball season's underway. We'll continue to take an analytical look at that and other trends around the business of sports. Thanks for hanging out with us. For Ari and for Andrew, I'm Phil. We'll see you again next week. Thanks for joining us on AAi.